are generic to the three governments. I think I mentioned before HR. I didn't mention, but it includes IT, payroll, library management, building maintenance, grounds maintenance. And by the way, we do have some combined services in some of those areas, but there's still a lot of ground to plow that could yield significant savings, because we're talking about the employees that are at the top of the pay scale, where you typically get the savings, because it's in the executive management where the combination happens, and that's where you tend to start avoiding duplication. So if you save one $80,000 employee, it's the equivalent of saving 2 or 3 of the actual, or I'll say the doers, the $30,000 to $40,000 employees, and I think that's where a lot of money can be saved. A lot of pencils, a lot of paper clips can avoid being counted if we get smart about combining services. In terms of other services, as I mentioned, the approach that I would take is putting the policies on the table and inviting public input. I don't think it should be based on what individual counselors or school board members believe that what they think are their favorite services. I think that's a clear indication that in an area that we need to get public input. Thirdly, I think the time has come for us to start considering more fee-based services. We offer a lot of a peanut butter approach, spreading peanut butter approach to how we cost our services. I think that we're in a time and an age, and we certainly would not be breaking new ground here. I mean, there are a lot of communities that do this, but we look at specific services that we could target a fee for, so that the person that enjoys that service actually spends more for it than the person who doesn't have that service. And I'm not talking about trash pick. I'm talking about those elected services, programs, athletics. I think that I think it's time for the school board to consider perhaps fees for participating in certain school activities and athletics that their children might participate in that others may not participate in. Right now, everybody contributes to that, and I think that there is a way to target some of that cost to the user.
Thank you. Don?
Yes, I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, because, again, I don't feel I have the expertise. I've been involved sufficiently in this process to know which policies, as you had described, should be or could be cut. I would certainly say that Mr. Dolan's references to combining services where that's possible makes ultimate tremendous sense if it can be done. Not filling open positions, that sort of thing, certainly would help. But again, I think the bottom line is that that's something I need to address when I have the knowledge to address it, which would be once involved in it more intimately.
Thank you. Mark?
Trent, thanks for the question. As you know, covering town council meetings, we've done a couple things in the last few years, I think, that addresses this. One, we passed a staffing policy that suggests that anytime there's an opening, that be reviewed with the department head, town manager, and town council, so that there's no longer an automatic replacement, be it retirement, resignation, what have you, of an individual, and begin to examine opportunities we've touched on earlier, cross-training, job sharing, possibly interns, high school students in some capacities being used for school-to-career opportunities. The other thing that we've done is we've gone back and looked at periodic reviews now on all fees, permitting, and licensing. And in fact, most recently, the council just put into effect building permits, where we found, particularly with electrical and building permits, we were vastly misrepresentative of the market. if you went to Hudson or Terry or Merrimack, some neighboring communities, we were many times half or less the fee for the same type of construction, be it commercial, industrial, or residential. I think we need to expand on that and look at other permitting and fees, licensing arrangements. It's been touched on earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. The combination of services, whether that's IT, human resources, payroll, library services, we need to consider. And it's no different than a household budget. You look at income or revenues, and you look at expenses. And one of the things I hope we can get into at some point this morning in the forum is economic development, because I think, you know, we're only going to get so much more out of the proverbial rock in terms of reducing expenses. I think we've really got to start driving the train in terms of how do we bring new revenues, not on the backs of homeowners and taxpayers, but with a dedicated approach to driving economic development with commercial industrial development.
Thank you. Deb?
Well, I am new. I'm certainly not new to budgets and restructuring. I'm originally from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and if you want to talk about a controversial and challenged town budget, they recently, for Christmas, had to make decisions whether they were going to let some key personnel go. They found ways to generate revenue and to restructure to keep some of those employees. Something that I would throw out to the council and to the taxpayers is, I do understand we are looking at 10 of our local peers, so to speak, for communities. But perhaps I would throw out to look at some of the challenged towns out there and what they have done to restructure and to be successful at that restructuring. Another town that comes to mind is Chelsea. I remember when Chelsea ran into financial difficulties, and I believe they even went into receivership. Now, while that is an extreme, there's a lot to be learned. There's a saying that we have in business, after businesses fail, and it's called a post-mortem study. And we look at what the key indicators were that failed these companies or failed these budgets, so that we can look at that extreme and learn from it. That would be one. Two would be the taxpayers definitely need to be more involved. You know, I hear a lot of controversy as I go in the supermarkets or different places and different involvements in the community that I'm in, of people complaining. If you have something to say, the budget committee, the town, there are websites galore for you to voice your opinion. Time is of essence. And so make that 2-3 minute email count. Give your input, give your ideas, whether you're an employee in one of these particular positions that are being assessed right now, give your input. It's imperative. But don't complain about it later. This is the time to speak up. This is a time of great change, new ideas. You can be pivotal in that. I also look at the 80-20 rule. Works in business every day. And, we need to take a look at that. We need to say, what are the keys driving this town every day to function? Not adequately, but above adequacy. We pride ourselves on that. We always have. And let's continue to do so. I totally agree with Mark regarding economic development. I'll give you a scare tactic that I just saw, and that was, I live in a townhouse, I'm looking for a home. I figured I'd go on foreclosures.com and just see, what the market is in Londonderry. 2 years ago, you couldn't find a house. People were paying above the asking price. There was page after page after page. We are going to have economic challenges in this community. And unfortunately, I think it may even get a little tougher. When looking at Trent's question about policies and services, we may have to reevaluate shifting what things are going to become more important and what has been important in evaluating that process. And I think, trying to attract new revenue to support and new economic development, we have to make that feasible and an enticement, just as you would if you were a new marketer of a product. It just doesn't happen.